So to start off with our enemy, we're just going to go to enemy. I'm going to press add component here this time. So this is to show you the different ways you can add a script. Monster AI, it will say new script, create and add. Now sometimes mine does this where it loads up a previous script, so you just might have to close that back down, load up the next one. So for this, to start off, we're going to be using something called Unity Engine.ai. Now that is just going to call a load of function we can use for AI that is not usually in there, because we don't want to load that in every script when we're not doing AI all the time. So we'll turn off our capital locks because that's really annoying. Sorry about that, I think there's a break in the recording, but we're not changed too far. So we're going to do transform, and then we're going to do player. So we're getting a reference to where our player is, which the AI will need to chase. We're going to do public float base speed. So for our game, we're going to have quite similar logic to Slender, where well, not to Slender, to like Slender Clones, because Slender teleports, and we're not going to have the time to do that today. We're going to have the enemy moving towards us at all times, but then we're going to do this where we got a speed increase per page. So every time we pick something up, we're just going to improve the speed of the enemy a little bit more. This is something to play around with, and that's when it comes to kind of the game design side of like, is this fair? Is this balanced? How much do we want to change it? But we'll leave it there now. We're going to use something called Nav Mesh Agent, which is basically going to control it moving about. We're going to do player movement. We're going to get player script. So we're just getting a reference to our player movement script if we need to. And then let's get started. So a lot like what we did in the player movement script in the start here, we're gonna just quickly grab the agent because it's private. So we're just going to do get component and then nav mesh agent. And what we'll do is we'll just go back into Unity quickly, and we're going to drag this monster AI. We'll wait for it to compile. Let's just give it a sec. We're going to drag this monster AI up. Should have some things loaded in, and then just add a nav mesh agent. There we go. Now if I go back into the script, so we're going to get player script, and we're going to do equals player dot get component, and we'll do player movement brackets, perfect. And then for update, that's all we need to start. We're getting all the information we need. So in the update, we're going to do if the player equals null, and we're going to do or player script equals null, return. And that's basically saying if we haven't set a player, if we don't have a player script, what's the point of chasing anything? I ain't doing anything below. And then we're going to start adding the logic below. So set destination, and we're going to do player dot position. So we've got player dot position in, and then what we need to do here is we need to grab a reference to our player script pages. So I'm going to start in, and I'm just going to call it player script, and then I'm going to call a function called get page count. Now that will come up with an error because we've not set that right now. So all we're going to do is we're just going to go back to player movement, scroll down to the bottom, underneath look around, we're going to do public int get page count. And that is just going to do return page count. So basically means we call that at any point like we're doing here, we can get the information of how many pages it's been. And with that, that's going to be really useful because what we have to do underneath is do the agent.speed. So that's going to be the speed of our enemy moving about. It's going to be the base speed plus speed increase per page times by pages. And that's basically the information we need, and that should be what we need for our Monster AI. So if I close that down, and just give it a second to reload. We'll just grab our player here, drag that in there, make sure our player has everything needed dragged in, and then what we'll do is we'll make sure that we've got our NavMesh agent here, which is great, and then on here we'll have to just try and bake our navigation, but you can see the static value has been depreciated, so it's not letting me do it. If I press play, it will say set destination can only be called or placed on NavMesh, so it's not working because there's no NavMesh. So what we need to do is on our enemy is install the AI navigation package, and that should do it at some point. There we go. I'll just wait for that to load, and then if I open this up now, it'll still be depreciated, but I can do a NavMesh surface and then bake, and then you see it all go blue, and it's basically telling the AI where it can move. So if I press play again, the AI is now chasing us. So everything's working as we want, the AI is chasing us, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause it here, and I'm just going to increase my page count to 3, and you can see that increase in speed there already. So now it's harder. If I decrease it back to 0 and run away again, do you see how much slower he's going? So we got what we need, the enemy's working, we've got a working enemy. The next thing we need to do is get this page collection working so we don't have to manually change it in the editor.